Welcome everyone, and in this presentation I just want to review some of the characteristics of a quality lesson and discuss how to improve instructional effectiveness. And basically I am covering chapter 5 in the textbook. So to have effective physical education instruction, you must have an effective learning environment, meaning you have to ask yourself a few questions and adhere to some personal guidelines. How is your class going to be organized? How well managed is your class? Are the students clear on your expectations? Have you covered those well? Are they student friendly? Do the students know your classroom protocols and procedures? Have you reviewed those? Have you done that consistently and made sure that students were held accountable to those procedures and expectations? A meaningful and effective learning environment is part of a quality lesson, and this also includes a high percentage of student engagement. And this means that the students are active, they are attentive, they listen, and they're cooperative. And this doesn't happen by chance. As a physical educator, you set the tone for your classroom. You need to be sure that you clearly articulate your expectations for the students and hold the students accountable for their behavior. And if they don't follow along with your rules and expectations, there needs to be a natural consequence for that. If you've prepared your lessons in advance, if you've developed your protocols and your procedures, you reviewed those and spent some time discussing those with the students, making sure that everyone's clear and the students clearly know what to expect, this will contribute to an increase in overall participation and learning in your classroom. An effective learning environment also means you have what's considered a success-oriented learning atmosphere. And this means that your lessons are developmentally appropriate and students know the goals and the objectives, and those are obtainable. They should be challenging for the student, yet easily to obtain. And that's a tough balance to have. But when students are able to experience success within a lesson, it helps develop more confidence, and it minimizes that learned helplessness that students can get, and that can cause a student to dislike physical activity, dislike the teacher, or even see themselves as incapable of being a physically active student. Also, clear objectives and high rates of feedback are extremely important within an effective learning environment, because if the expectations are clear and students know exactly what they need to do and how they should do it, typically you'll have a minimal amount of management or behavior problems in the classroom. If expectations are vague and students become confused, they're more likely to become distracted, and this leads to students being off task, minimizing participation, and leading to management problems. When you're providing students with frequent feedback, it not only guides the students and offers that learning assistant, but it also helps to keep the students on track and focused on the tasks that you have, because if they know you're watching, then they will more likely remain on task. So as a teacher, you need to be sure that you are roaming the classroom and you're providing those opportunities for feedback as students are practicing a skill, so that way they know you're coming around, they know you're watching and you're observing, and that keeps them on task. So feedback is a critical component of instruction, and it helps in a lot of different ways. Also, monitoring students' progress, whether through feedback, observation, or even an assessment, provides the student with some helpful information regarding learning also, but it also helps you as the teacher determine if the students are actually working towards your goals. You can't be positive that you're a great teacher or physical educator if you have not developed objectives, if you have not provided feedback as students are practicing, if you have not determined if the students are meeting those goals through some form of assessment. You really cannot be sure that you are meeting the standards, meeting your goals, and being effective as a teacher. So to improve instructional effectiveness, you must be able to run a well-managed class. And I've mentioned before that management issues are a major concern for all teachers, and the lack of management can cause some good teachers to find a different profession. So by developing and consistently reviewing classroom protocols and procedures and utilizing effective transitions, you can help minimize some of those management problems also. So think about how you're going to move from one subject to the next. How are you going to transition from an academic subject to a PE lesson in an elementary classroom? Or how are you going to take your class from one location to the next? Or how are you going to organize your class for instruction and then change that organization for grouping or practice? These things should be considered in advance and reviewed with the class so everyone is familiar with your procedures. And this also minimizes the potential for classroom management issues to occur. And don't neglect the power of your own enthusiasm. As a teacher, the students will often try to read your mood or personality, and if it appears that you don't feel comfortable with the subject or you don't seem too excited to teach the lesson, you can't expect the students to get excited either. Motivating students can happen in many different ways, and one of which is how enthusiastic you seem about a topic or a lesson. If you seem to have a poor attitude and you have this monotone voice, or you seem indifferent about a lesson, you're not likely to encourage the students to participate, because they will look at that and they'll say, well, if my teacher doesn't seem too excited about this, why should I? It doesn't mean that you have to be a cheerleader every day, but if you enjoy what you're doing and that enjoyment is evident, and it should be, you can help motivate your students a lot more and encourage them to engage in an activity. So your enthusiasm is a key component to increasing participation and having a well-run lesson. Now, within the essential elements of instruction, there's also well-developed and designed and measurable student outcomes. And these are the things that you expect the student to be able to do. The outcomes are what gives meaning and direction to your lesson and to your instruction, because they clearly identify what the expectations of the students are. They define the behavior for the participation, and they identify the content that should be learned. So with quality physical education instruction, the student outcomes should address all learning domains. And remember that the 3 learning domains for physical education instruction include the psychomotor domain, which are the actual physical skills and the movement that's performed by the student. The cognitive domain, which is the knowledge and understanding acquired of a skill or a concept. And the affective domain, which includes their emotions or feelings or attitudes towards any activity, towards behavior, and just overall conduct in the classroom. And in doing this, you also want to familiarize yourself with Bloom's taxonomy, because the goal is to move students up this level of Bloom taxonomy from that basic understanding level, which is just something that they can do without thinking about it, to the evaluation stage, which is the stage in which they are able to start to be critical thinkers and consider different ways to utilize certain movements and skills and strategies and tactics and things like that. So you always want to familiarize yourself with Bloom's taxonomy, especially if you're developing an assessment, if you are designing your lessons to challenge the students, because that will help you help the students to improve in their learning. Now, as you begin to develop activities and teach new skills and concepts to students, determine what they already know and what they are able to do. This is considered the instructional entry level of the students. And this informs you as a teacher where to begin your instruction, which should be challenging enough for the students to work hard, but still be obtainable as well. Instruction for the students should not necessarily come easy, or learning for the students shouldn't come easy, but it should be difficult enough to maintain motivation and desire to participate, but still have that tough balance, so students still need to work hard in order to achieve the goals. Some teachers believe that a student should struggle with a concept or skill early on and then work through the struggle in order to learn the skill. But this is proven in K-12 physical education to be counterproductive. Remember that there is a distinct purpose of K-12 physical education, and it isn't team sports, coaching, or forcing a child into competition before a skill has been learned. So remember to identify the differences in physical education instruction and athletics and coaching as well. Use what's considered the anticipatory set. And this is the beginning steps, or the phase of a lesson that you're introducing a concept and you're preparing students for learning, and you're helping the students understand what needs to be done to maintain that focus on the objectives specific to the core concepts to be learned. Another area to address in the instructional effectiveness area is the delivery of meaningful skill instruction. And here is where many teachers make the assumption on student learning, because some teachers feel that just because they, as a teacher, can perform a skill, the students should be able to quickly pick up the skill as well. And when delivering meaningful skill instruction, you want to limit your instruction to 1 or 2 main points or key points. You want to avoid those Hall of Shame type elements, those lengthy instructions, and you want to be able to present information in its most basic student-friendly form so that students are able to understand clearly what you're expecting of them. Now, I'll pause here because I like to break up the online lecture presentation in several different segments so you don't have to sit through a long lecture online listening to me. So I'll pick back up with this same presentation in part 2.